What do President Donald Trump and 19th century President William McKinley have in common? Tariffs. In fact, Trump has repeatedly praised McKinley, the so-called Tariff King. Today, we'll explore how McKinley used tariffs in the late 1800s, why Trump admires him, and how McKinley ultimately changed his mind on the very trade policies that defined his legacy. When it comes to tariffs, President Trump really looks up to William McKinley. But just how big were McKinley's tariffs? And did he keep them all the way through his presidency? That's where the story gets interesting. McKinley oversaw one of the biggest tariff bills in U.S. history. At one point, he even referred to himself as a congressman. McKinley helped pass tariffs that raised import duties on everything from wool to tin plate. This achieved two goals. 1. Restriction, protectionism, limiting imports to help domestic industries. 2. Revenue. Tariffs brought in a large share of federal income back then. McKinley's success with tariffs earned him the nickname Tariff King. According to economist Doug Irwin, tariffs generally serve three main objectives, known as the 3 R's of trade policy. 1. Revenue, generating money for the government. 2. Restriction, protecting domestic industries by limiting imports. 3. Reciprocity, using tariffs as a bargaining chip to get other nations to lower their own barriers. McKinley dabbled in all three throughout his career, just like Donald Trump says he wants to do today. In the late 1800s, tariffs were bringing in massive amounts of revenue, sometimes half of the federal government's income. After the Civil War, the United States actually had a surplus. Congress needed to figure out how to reduce that surplus, leading to a fierce debate. Democrats wanted lower tariff rates, believing that would yield less revenue. But Republicans, led by Congressman McKinley, argued higher rates would restrict imports so much that revenue would actually drop. The result? Higher tariffs under the McKinley bill. Import duties soared, particularly for tin plate, a staple of American manufacturing at the time. These tariffs did boost domestic industries, but they also raised consumer prices. When an economic recession struck in the 1890s, mostly due to issues with the gold standard, voters associated higher costs with Republican tariff policy. The party suffered a crushing defeat, and William McKinley briefly lost office. But he rebounded, became governor of Ohio, and ultimately won the 1896 presidential election. As president, McKinley surprised many by embracing the third R, reciprocity. He secured congressional authority to reduce tariffs on select goods, negotiating "I'll lower mine if you lower yours" trade agreements. By the end of his first term, the U.S. was manufacturing at an unprecedented scale. McKinley realized the future lay in more open markets. He openly called for fewer protectionist measures, a dramatic shift from his earlier stance. McKinley was tragically assassinated in 1901, cutting short any broader free trade agenda he might have pursued. His successor, Theodore Roosevelt, did not push tariffs in the same way. Fast forward over a century, President Donald Trump calls McKinley a role model, describing himself as a bigger tariff king than McKinley. Trump wants to use tariffs to 1. Raise revenue to pay off debt. 2. Protect American manufacturing. 3. Secure reciprocal deals from other nations. But economists caution you can't accomplish all three objectives at once. Restricting imports reduces revenue, while raising revenue typically requires steady import levels. In today's interconnected world, tariffs don't just affect finished products, they disrupt complex supply chains crossing multiple borders. As a result, broad, high tariffs are more disruptive than in McKinley's era. So, will Trump expand on McKinley's legacy or discover, like McKinley did, that overusing tariffs can backfire? The modern global economy poses challenges a 19th century politician never had to face. William McKinley's journey shows how a self-proclaimed tariff man can evolve, eventually advocating for reciprocity and open markets. Whether President Trump follows that same path or doubles down on tariffs remains to be seen. One thing is certain, tariffs are back in the spotlight, and McKinley's story still offers lessons for America's leaders today. Thanks for watching. If you found this video insightful, give it a like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments. Do you think tariffs help or hurt our modern economy? We'll see you next time.